Today, I speak as a president of quite a big animal rights organization that runs campaigns both in Poland and in many countries in the region. 5 years ago, I was sitting with a group of my friends. We had absolutely no money, no experience, and we were just about to start a big campaign against one of the powerful enemies in Poland, which is the fur industry. And every time I think about this period between 5 years ago and today, and I try to come up with idea on what made us successful, like starting from being very small and having nothing to growing an important and big organization, I realized that it's probably not things that we had, but things that we lacked that actually made us successful. And when I think about challenges that we had in the very beginning, one of them was that we are the first organization in Poland that tries to solve problems concerning farmed animals, which is the biggest problem about animals. It's much easier to work with cats and dogs because people tend to empathize with them much more. And we decided that our focus would be 100% on farmed animals. If you ever try to do any activism in Poland, you probably realize that we don't really live in a country with high levels of social engagement. It's not very popular here to be a member of an organization, to be a volunteer, unlike in many other countries in Europe. Also, Poland as a country has huge industry. We are one of the major producers of fur in the world. We are one of the 3 biggest producers of animal fur. The only 2 that are bigger than Poland are China and Denmark. We are also one of the major producers of broiler chickens, caged eggs in Europe, and so on and so forth. So the problems we were trying to solve were really, really big. And because the industry is so big, farmers have a huge influence on politicians as well. And to add to all those problems that we were facing, we also had no money. When we were starting, we just had a lot of good ideas and a lot of passion, but we had absolutely no experience in running an organization. Everything we tried to do felt kind of confusing and scary. And also we felt that because we are so different, like we really had no money and no resources. So we are so much different from established and big NGOs in Poland, we cannot really copy and mimic what they do. And now I think that this lack of experience was actually a good thing because it made it easier for us to experiment and to look elsewhere for inspiration. So instead of copying what other NGOs are doing, we looked for some other community that is also based on good ideas and usually does not have many resources. And we started finding inspiration among the startups. It's from the startups and the IT community that we learned that it's really good to work remotely. Because of this, we can hire people based on their real skills and not based on the city they live in. It's from the startup community that we learned to use the structure with very flat hierarchy and with so-called open allocation, which means that every activist or every worker can freely choose projects and campaigns they work on. And then we also realized that all those tools that are not so popular among NGOs actually are really great to make people engaged and motivated. So I feel that this problem that we had, the lack of experience, actually forced us to look elsewhere for inspiration. They forced us to learn. It forced us to not to look at things that other people were doing in our sphere, and it really made our organization stronger and better. Another problem, and it's always a problem if you try to do almost anything, was the money. Many non-governmental organizations strongly depend on grants or some sort of governmental support. But even though we were trying to solve a really huge and important issue, which is the factory farming, that harms not only animals, but also human health and ecology, there are not many grants that actually support this important work. So knowing that there is no money waiting for us to take so that we can start doing the good things, we realized that the only way for us to really do what we want to do is to communicate with people so that we can get support from regular members of the society. We had to become super efficient and super effective in the way we communicate. And I think the fact that we basically had to do it actually made our campaigns much better. We learned that as activists, we cannot just have our great ideas and start talking to people, or rather shouting to them through the megaphone. And I think a lot of people have this picture of activists. We really had to learn what people think. We had to learn to listen to them. We had to learn what is their belief system so that we can explain what we believe in and how we believe the world should look like in such a way that they are really able to understand it. Another problem we were trying to solve was low level of social engagement. I think it's easy to start complaining that people don't care about what we do, that they are not active, that they are passive. But because we had this passion that we really wanted to make this world better for the animals, we decided that getting bitter is not an option. We just have to find ways to make people inspired. We had to find ways to bring people to the organization and to make them so motivated that they also stay there. And I think one solution that we found was that what brings people to activism is actually showing people that are activists. And I think how it works is that it actually demystifies activism. You show that behind every successful event, behind every successful campaign, there are just regular, normal people like you and I. But one question is to bring people to the organization, and another is to make them stay there. And probably, if you start a new project, it can be either an organization or a company. You usually have this great idea, and you become so focused on it that you want to have full control over the whole thing. But if you really want to change the world for the better, you need something more than just an organization. What you really need is more of a movement. If the work that you're doing depends on people being motivated and creative, you have to give them the right to make decisions so that they really feel that they are part of your project. Nowadays, I really think that if you believe in what you're doing, you need to be brave enough to share it with other people and let them use it as their own. During those last 5 years, I also found out that a lot of great and creative campaigns and ideas that we did were started because of some new and inexperienced people. For example, when a couple of years ago, we wanted to find a way to make people interested in the fate of over 40 million caged hens that live and die in Poland every day. We wanted, because it's not easy for people to empathize with birds, we wanted to engage a person that can speak about those birds to people so that they will start empathizing with the birds because of this person. And as most of animal rights organization, our organization mostly consists of vegans. But one of our new activists had this idea that maybe the best person to talk about the problems with birds would be actually a meat eater. and also a person that is really well known to the society because he's a cook and culinary critic. We decided to invite Robert McCormick to become a part of the campaign. He told us it's going to be a failure because people will hate us for this, people will criticize us for this, because it's not really common that people who eat meat actually become engaged in campaigns in favor of farmed animals. We also had a lot of reservations, but the truth is that nowadays a film where Robert McCormick is talking about a rescue hen named Katarzyna and about all the problems connected to caged eggs in Poland is one of the most popular videos that we've ever made. And I think if it was the experienced activists that were planning this campaign, we would never choose him as our ambassador. So one thing I know now is that if you have those new people that are very green and inexperienced and they have crazy ideas, you don't have to always agree with them, but you should always listen. I also think that overcoming obstacles that we have on our way is one thing, but another is actually dealing with failure. Failure is always a part of what we do, especially if you are running an NGO and you're really trying to change the world for the better. Because if you're in the business of changing the world, by definition, you want to change what is now into what the world can be in the future. So, to change the world for the better, you need to take a step into the future and into the unknown. You have to do something that hasn't been done before. So failure will always be a part of this process because there is nothing nothing is sure yet. I think it's extremely important to accept this risk of failure, because only when we accept the fact that we can fail, we can be brave enough to really try new things, to really experiment, and to really change things for the better. I believe that having a culture that accepts and is very comfortable with failure is also extremely important if we work with other people. People in general are very scared of criticism and of failing. They are much more scared of being criticized because they did something wrong than they strive for approval. If what we are trying to achieve depends on human motivation and creativity, we should do our best to make people feel okay with the possibility of doing something wrong, of failing, losing money. Because the biggest problem we can have is not that they will make mistake, but because they are scared of failing, they would just become passive and will not try to come up with creative ideas. And I think one of our, or maybe even the most successful thing we did was strongly connected to failure. Once we got an anonymous tip that in a fur farm there are 2 little fox cubs that were injured by their own mother because of the conditions at the fur farm. She was so stressed that she started being aggressive towards her own children, and in the end she even bit out their hind legs. We knew that there is this situation in the farm and we wanted to help the animals, but we also knew that to bring real change for the fur animals and to possibly get a ban on fur farming in Poland, it's not enough to just help individual animals, but to show to the society how big the problems connected to the fur farming are. So we wanted to both save the animals and to share the story. Then we started consulting lawyers and asking them, can we actually go to the farm and take the animals and show it to people that we are taking those animals from the farm? And their opinions were not very optimistic. So a lot of people decided that it will be a big risk to both to the people that decided to go to the farm and to the organization itself, because we can be sued by the farmers. It was quite scary, and we were debating about this for a couple of days and hours, and I think we were still discussing if it's actually a smart thing to do. Very late at night, when finally my own sister volunteered to be the person to go to this farm. So we decided to do it, even though it was scary, and we were almost sure that consequences would be very bad. We decided to rescue the foxes and then told their story to the public. Today, both foxes, Hansel and Gretel, they live in a small sanctuary, and I think the fact that we can show their story of their life and to say that conditions on factory farms are so bad for the animals that a fox mother can even start attacking and almost killing her own babies because of the stress and because of this terrible environment there. I think their story tells much more about the cruelty of the fur farming than any numbers of reports or like statistical data that we could provide. It was also the biggest news story that we've ever made, and it was featured even in Reuters. What I'm trying to say here is not that there is a specific list of things that you should do to become successful. It's easy to find those lists of 5 sure steps for success, but I truly think that such lists are just stupid and fake. I just want to share that from my personal experience, trying to avoid failure and avoid possible challenges and problems is not only impossible, but it's even bad for you. I think that if you have a right mindset towards failure and problems, they actually make you better and stronger. If you see problems ahead of you, you shouldn't treat them as something to be scared of, but rather as heavyweights that you have to practice with every day and regularly so that you can actually become strong and fit in the long run. Overcoming failures and problems make you better, make you stronger. So problems are actually your friends. And next time, when your project, something you believe in, fails, instead of being scared of it, you should just get prepared, look it at the face, and think, how interesting. Thank you.